So, Dune. All right. Well, okay. So, we're off to the races, right? Here it is. I've begun, and for this first segment, I read basically the first chapter. It turned out to be a little bit more than 7 pages. I think it came to about 10 pages, and interesting. So my initial thoughts are thus. There's a couple of things here. And I'm going to read there's a little like a little epigraph kind of thing right at the front that says, "To the people whose labors go beyond ideas into the realm of real materials is in quotes, to the dryland ecologists, wherever they may be, in whatever time they work, this effort at prediction is dedicated in humility and admiration." Now, this is very interesting because first of all, the whole thing about real materials, it's talking about laborers, right? And this effort at prediction. So, this is a futurist work because it's an interesting detail. Because we know that this went on to inspire, for instance, Star Wars, right? As many things inspired Star Wars. But this inspired Star Wars along with like Isaac Asimov's Foundation and whatever else. But Star Wars, very famously, it's a long time ago in a galaxy far away, so the implication is that this has nothing to do with Earth. It's a different thing. It's something else. The implication here is that this is the future, perhaps, thousands upon thousands of years from now. So that I thought was interesting. I thought this was an interesting thing. That it's predicting a future time. At least that's how I'm interpreting this. And, I'm already getting the sort of upfront, I'm being told that this is a kind of a humanist work, kind of talking about the philosophy of this has to do very much with having respect for the working class, to put it that way, to put it direct. I like where this story is coming from. Now, I have to reiterate, I've seen the original David Lynch movie, so of course I'm familiar with the story, and I've seen it more than once. So obviously there are elements of it that, I'm kind of familiar with. But it's just interesting to see it illustrated in the book up front. I'm coming to this, I'm trying my best to come to this as if I did not know anything, and I'm just trying to get sucked into the story. So that's kind of, what this thought process is. I'm trying my best to put all my preconceived notions, to put the David Lynch movie out of my mind. I'm trying to appreciate this for what it is, like on its own terms. Okay, so that sort of stuck out at me, and so then we go to book one, Dune, right? At the top, the very first thing is it's in italics. It's a little paragraph, which is supposedly it's an excerpt. It's an excerpt from the Manual of Muad'Dib. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, by the Princess Irulan, right? So this is the idea, kind of an element of just part of the detail of the world. Like we're getting sucked into this world, and we're gonna through the story that is being told, we'll also see excerpts from supposed writings and things that have to do with this. So I like that, and this little paragraph is supposed to sort of set the scene and bring you into the story. So it basically kind of tells you about this is the life of Muad'Dib. So I'm assuming, not assuming. I mean, I kind of know. Like I said, I've seen the movie, but so I understand that this is setting the stage, because this first chapter deals with we meet the main character, who is Paul Atreides. And see, that's, again, I don't even know if he's referred to as Paul Atreides. I don't remember that detail anymore. If he's actually referred to as Paul Atreides or just Paul, maybe he's just Paul there of the House of Atreides or something like that. But my point is, I know the main character is Paul Atreides, who in the David Lynch film was played by Kyle MacLachlan. And that in a way kind of helps me, because obviously usually when you read a book, there's no movie, there's nothing. So, as you're reading it, you're picturing things in your head, you're picturing them a certain way. And I already have a reference point. It's inevitable. My reference point is the David Lynch film. That might help me, though. It might help me, since some of this stuff is a little bit dense. it will help me to sort of envision it better, remember parts of the movie. Oh, right, this is the part of this or that. And it also kind of helps me visualize it. It's a very imaginative film with great production design. Whatever you may think of the film on any other levels, it is definitely a very well produced, very well designed, exquisitely designed film. So that part I would think that no one should really have any kind of problem with. So there's that, right? I'm already envisioning it, so that's going to kind of help me, I think, because obviously as I'm reading this, I'm picturing Kyle MacLachlan, and when his mother comes in, Jessica, I'm picturing Francesca Annis, and so on and so forth. So that part is that makes things a little bit easy for me, I have to admit. Fine. But in this first chapter, it's basically we meet Paul, and he is sent to a room with the Reverend Mother to undergo a test. A test of strength, of faith, or however you want to look at it, because they think that he may be the Kwisatz Hadderach. I think that's how you pronounce it. Again, see, I mean, do you see what I'm talking about? Do you see why, this is kind of this has always been difficult for me because of all this gibberish. That for me, those things, I can't, I'm sorry. But, and I think there's a glossary, and I'm going to look, but I assume that Kwisatz Hadderach refers to the chosen one or the Messiah. This is setting up. I mean, Dune is a messianic narrative. This is setting that up. It's setting up how Paul is the chosen one. So he must go and do the Kwisatz. Okay, so he must go and undergo this test, and the Reverend Mother brings out this box, and he has to stick his hand in that box. It's a very memorable scene from the David Lynch film, and having seen the trailer for the new one, that scene is there too. Clearly they're putting that, and interestingly enough, watching the trailer for the new film, they show bits and pieces of that scene. Timothée Chalamet walks up to it's the same thing. It's almost the same camera angles even as the David Lynch film. So, one wonders just how different the Denis Villeneuve film is going to be from the David Lynch film. It might not be all that different because maybe, and somebody might be like, no, that's heresy. It's possible that David Lynch film really was quite faithful to the book. Let's because so far, at least that's one little detail where I'm going, this is pretty much kind of the same. And the book, it's the same, and the movie, it's kind of the same. And so that was an interesting detail that I saw right there. So, but basically, that's what this chapter entails. This chapter is Paul going and taking that test, and essentially passing the test, which I think it means to show that yes, he very likely is the Kwisatz Hadderach. I'm going to keep saying that so that I can remember it. And there was what was the other one? Oh yeah, Gom Jabbar, Gom Jabbar, which is like a needle that the Reverend Mother sticks against his neck, and basically says, if you do not put your hand in here, if you pull out your hand before the test is over, I will stab you with this and you will die. This has poison in it and whatever. Okay, so exactly like the David Lynch movie, and basically, showing that this is a very dangerous thing. And the implication is that his mother, Jessica, also went through this. And there's a mention made of the Bene Gesserits. These are all very interesting things. These are all very interesting kind of terms. I don't know what a lot of this stuff means, okay? But I'll be honest, I don't think it matters, at least not yet. I think you can kind of contextually figure it out. I've always, one of my big problems with reading this book has always been this terminology, this denseness of the writing. But once I sat down and just sort of focused and said, all right, you know what, I gotta do this. So boom, I focused on it. And then that's when I come to realize this stuff doesn't really matter. It's quite simple. It's establishing a simple thing up front. I want to talk a little bit about that introductory paragraph again. It sets the scene. And that reminds me also of the David Lynch movie, how it opens on Virginia Madsen. I think she's the Princess Irulan. And this is the only time she appears in the movie, which is weird. But anyway, she shows up like with a star. She like comes in. She fades in from a star field, and she gives you this introduction. You are given an explanation of the entire premise of the story, of what's going on, the setting, the everything. You're given this explanation of what's going on, what this world is. And the curious thing about that, and I've seen the film more than once, and it's the same thing every time. As detailed as that is, she comes out and just spouts out all this exposition and stuff. And by the time she's done talking, I think she talks for like 5 minutes. By the time she's done, and here come the spectacular opening credits with the music by Toto. Well, actually, it's not. I think that music's done. The theme music of the movie was Brian Eno. Toto gets a lot of credit, but that opening thing, which is great music, that's actually Brian Eno, I think, but doesn't matter. The point is, by the time she's done talking, you are no closer to understanding what you were about to watch than you were, when the production company logo came up. You are no closer to it. It gives you nothing. It is as impenetrable. It's this thing that was supposed to make things clear to you, and you don't understand anyway. It's like she might as well be speaking Pig Latin. It doesn't matter what she's saying. It doesn't make any sense. It didn't then, and then maybe by the time you get to the end of the movie, you kind of get some of it. But it serves to confuse you more, which I think is very strange. And I don't know this for a fact because I didn't see the film in theaters when it came out. I was maybe a bit too young. I was already alive, but I was maybe a bit too young. But I know people who have seen it, and they've told me this, and I've read about it, and I know that it's true, that when the film first came out, in the theater lobby, along with your movie ticket, they would give you like a little pamphlet, which was sort of a glossary. And I think that that's an interesting thing for a movie. I don't think it's a very good idea, but it was like you would get this pamphlet that would sort of give you an explanation of the plot and the world and this glossary of terms and things. And I'm going, that's weird. A movie shouldn't need an instruction manual. How's that even going to work? Because you're sitting. Is it supposed to be like in an opera? Like when you're sitting in the theater, in the playbill usually you have the whole story and you can sort of follow along because the opera might be in Italian or German or whatever, so you don't know the words, but you're looking at the images, and then the playbill will give you some context and you'll be able to follow the story, right? That's the concept. And so I don't understand how like a movie is. You're sitting. You're supposed to sit there in the dark theater, and then like when all of a sudden something comes up and it's like, what's that about? And then you're supposed to consult the pamphlets, and how are you going to do that? Well, like there were no cell phones in 1984. Like, are you supposed to like? How are you going to light it? How do you see? And while you're doing that, you're going to miss something. I mean, I never understood the concept. Or was it intended to then, as a souvenir, like everything that was completely impenetrable for the movie you just watched, you're walking out there totally confused, and then you're supposed to read the pamphlet. And anyway, my point is, it's weird, but I think the filmmakers knew that they had made a very dense movie based on a very dense book and tried their best to help audiences. I think the implication was you were supposed to give that a quick read before the movie started, so that, okay, I'm kind of, okay, I get this. But that seems intimidating and kind of scary and kind of weird. But anyway, the book itself is doing this. Those little paragraphs, that little paragraph here is meant to sort of bring you into the story. And I think that's good. That's a good narrative technique, and it's done in a way that feels organic because it's taking a little piece of something from the world and giving you context and drawing you in and making this feel real, giving it a certain sense of reality, and I appreciate that. So we're off to a great start. We're off to a good start. I'm done for today. Tomorrow I will continue. And yeah, it's a nice start. We meet Paul. He passes the test, and the chapter closes on a very. I like the closing line of the chapter. It's it's something about taking some kind of a drug that is supposed to expand your mind, right? And that only the true, like only the Kwisatz Hadderach, the Kwisatz Hadderach can do it, right? How many have done this, and many have done it, but it hasn't worked out. And Paul says they tried and failed, all of them, and she says no, they tried and died, and that's where the chapter ends. And I think that that's a very good thing. It really contextualizes how important this is, how powerful it is, And yeah, this is a nice start to the story. I'm glad I did this. I will continue. This is not, I'm not going to give up. No matter what happens, I'm not going to give up, I promise. So thanks. Thanks for hanging out with me and as I share my thoughts on Dune. And I will be continuing tomorrow. Kwisatz Hadderach.